What's up, guys? Welcome back to Switch It Up Podcast, episode 7. Today, we're going to be asking a bunch of controversial questions. We're going to be talking about things like the biggest bust in sports, the greatest sports moments we've witnessed, and we're going to be talking about this disaster Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight and what it means for the sport of boxing. Let's get into it. The first thing we wanted to talk about was if you had unlimited money in the world, if you won the lottery, if you came into some money, what would you do with it? And what are the top 3 things you would do? Would you take a trip? Would you go to a sporting event? What would you do if you had unlimited money? Top 3. What would you do, Huz? What's the first thing you would do?
Honestly, I have like a list of 3 things, obviously, but this like in no particular order.
Okay.
The first thing I would definitely want to do is buy a yacht, have my own
A
yacht.
yacht.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I want to be in Monte Carlo and watch an F1 race
Yeah,
from my
that's
yacht.
the thing.
That's the thing I want to do.
I honestly think too, I think that would be on my list. It's not even the F1 race part of it. I think it's just such like a incredible place to be. I don't think there's many places on earth that have like one time of year where if you're there, it's like everybody is there that are like that, has money. And I think that would be incredible if you could buy a boat, dock it there, watch that for the weekend. It would just be such an incredible weekend to be there. I think that would probably be on my list too. But one of the first things I think I would do is I want to go and see the Wimbledon final. And most people might be thinking to themselves, going to Wimbledon is not really like something that you have to have unlimited money to do. But the problem is you can't buy tickets. You have to win them in a lottery, or you have to have families who have spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds, going to Wimbledon beforehand, or have family seats that are assigned. And if you don't win that, then you have to go through a raffle in order to even purchase them. And I think there's something like £250,000 for a lower bowl seat for the Wimbledon final, which is just mental. So I would love to be able to do that.
They're not like available for public purchase.
No, only the like walk around tickets. You actually can't buy the seats, which is nuts. So I would love to be able to do that, just to say that I did it, which would be really cool. But what do you got? What's another thing?
Number 2, I definitely, we both love traveling a lot, right?
Of course.
So I with all the money in the world, I would definitely want to travel to each continent. I wouldn't necessarily say every country, but traveling to each continent, trying out different traditions, seeing different cultures, just learning more about the people around us, right? That's like one thing I definitely want to do, is getting to know more people.
That'd be really cool. I think for me, I love travel, but I think like I would travel for very different reasons. So I'm like a massive foodie. So for me, there's a thing called the San Pellegrino's World Best 100 Restaurant List. And I've managed to do a few of them so far in my life, but I think
haven't you done like 53 of the 100 or something crazy
30,
like that?
31,
okay,
but I would love to be able to cross off the other 69 restaurants that I haven't done. If I had unlimited money.
Great number.
Yeah, it'd be a very cool thing to be able to travel just to eat at those places.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so last thing I got on my leaf or my list is buying the Leafs. I think that's like a given. right?
Unlimited money.
Unlimited money. I'm definitely buying my team, and then doing whatever I want with them. I'm selling it right away, relocating.
Yeah, exactly. Burn it to the ground.
No, but yeah, if that's an option I have, why not, right?
That'd be amazing. I didn't think of that one, actually. That's a really good one. I think for me, the last thing I would probably do, a sports franchise would be very cool. I don't know if I've thought about the Leafs, but I think that would be a very interesting one. But I think the last thing I would do, if I had unlimited money, would be to buy a couple of houses just like across the world, so I could travel and not really think too much of it. Or if I needed extra money in the future, I could sell some of the houses, but just to have a place where I could go to escape would be incredible.
Here's the thing though, right? Like I wouldn't want to buy houses because I have unlimited money.
True.
So like, like why should I buy a house, maintain it throughout a year, and whatever the stuff you have to do to, all the costs that come with it. But even at that same time, I still have unlimited money, so I shouldn't still care about it, right? But it's just having to worry about that. I just wouldn't want to really,
You're
have that
right.
in the back of my head.
I'll change my answer. I'm going to the Masters golf. I'm going to the Masters golf
Yeah,
championship.
fair
I would
enough. Yeah.
love to watch what goes on at that insane golf tournament every year. That would be just to walk the grounds, let alone or even play Augusta would be something incredible.
Yeah.
So that would be on my list.
Well, that's awesome to hear, man. But yeah, let's move on to our next question that we have here. And what it is that if you could know the truth about any one question ever, so it could be literally anything in the world,
Oof.
what would it be?
So I think you could go a lot of different ways with this. You could be like, I want to know how to cure cancer. I want to know when I'm going to die, which are
Yeah.
all very good questions, I think. But for me, without a doubt, have aliens visited us? And if they have, why have they? And are all the people that were told they're nuts, were they right? If they have visited us, I feel like right now there's so much information coming out about like these crafts that people see, but they're always on like the most grainy video anybody's ever seen ever. So I wonder if I could get the true answer to any one question, I think it would be, have aliens come? If they have, like, what are they? What do they look like? Blah, 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 blah. I just think it would be a very cool question to know the answer to, because you probably won't ever find it out.
Yeah, that's a great question. But why would you want to know when you die?
Well,
Like,
I just think there's
I
some
wouldn't.
people would. I think some people would.
No chance.
Yeah,
Why? Like that? Like
I don't
if
know.
if I had a death, well, you literally just asked, like,
Yeah.
But
Well,
like,
I've had a few friends say they would. They would
oh
definitely
my
want to know when
god,
they
you
died.
need new friends. I don't know, bro.
I don't
Like just
know.
having that at the back of my head over time, just knowing that there's a deadline and like there's time
Right.
just running out, I would be so stressed out. But like, would you want to know how or when, if you had a choice, or if you had to pick two?
I think I'd rather know how, so that I can attempt to avoid it.
Yeah.
But
100%.
then again, if you absolutely knew how, then there'd be no avoiding it. So you'd have to just kind of, every time, like, let's say it said, oh, you're gonna die in an elevator. Every time you step in an elevator, you're gonna want to kill
Well,
yourself.
then you just wouldn't step in an elevator, take the stairs.
Right, but then apparently it's gonna happen anyway.
Well,
so
yeah, fair enough. See, the thing with you can say the exact same thing about not, or just knowing when and not how, because like if you have like 10 seconds left, or like even your last day, it's like it just says today you're dying at some point.
Right.
Everything you're doing is like,
that's the thing, is I think for most people, at least for people our age, if you got your death sentence, it's likely not going to be tomorrow or the next day. It's likely going to be at least a few years in the future. And if I knew, let's say,
you never know.
Sure, no,
right?
you don't. But that's why you're supposed to live your life, like the best you can. But for me, it's like, let's say my death date, knock on wood here, is like 4 years and 7 days down the road, right? Then I'm gonna spend the rest of my life spending as much money as possible and racking up as much credit card debt to do the things I want to do before I die.
You're already doing that.
Well, you got a point, but I would do that to like such an extreme, because I knew that there was no future, right? Whereas if you, obviously it's better not knowing, but I think if you knew that, then you could plan your life a different way than you otherwise would, which I think there's something to be said for that. It's not what I would do personally, but I think if you could do it, a lot of people would do it. But anyway, I think what was your answer to your
so my question definitely was, will it ever be possible to just know everything?
Through
that's
what,
deep.
Elon Musk's chip in the brain sort of thing?
No, just
what are we talking about?
Just literally have an answer to everything. It defeats the whole purpose of one question, but
really
that still is a question at the end of the day.
This is the whole fucking circle of the magic genie in the lamp, and I want more wishes if I only get 3. Okay, well, we have another very interesting question here. I kind of poached this off of one of my favorite comedians' Instagrams, but I thought it was a very interesting question. So, for you, if you could do one of these things, what would it be? Would you rather be able to be a scratch golfer, which for those of you who don't know what that is, means shoot par on almost any golf course that you play? Would you rather be able to dunk a basketball, run an ultra marathon, which is any marathon over, the average marathon, which is like around 42 kilometers? Would you rather be able to hit a home run off a major league pitcher? So dunk a basketball, scratch golfer, ultra marathon, or run a home run off a major league pitcher. I think personally there is an easy answer to this question.
I would personally would want to be a scratch golfer,
Yeah, no doubt
right?
about it. I think
So
absolutely.
it's either it's so I was actually debating with myself about this
Yeah,
question. Dunking a basketball, it's whatever. Cool, you got hops. You know,
right.
it's not the best thing out of the
I
four,
don't even
I would
think it
say.
deserves to be in this category.
Yeah, fair enough. And then hitting a home run off of a major league pitcher, it's just timing at the end of the day. Like baseball players, if you're
Yeah,
listening to this, you're gonna hate me 100%. But you know, I played cricket for many years of my life. It's a similar sport, but very different in its
not
own
a
way.
sport. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
okay,
I'm
you play
kidding. Cricket's
tennis.
definitely a
You
sport.
play tennis, all right, buddy. Anyways, so just it's all about timing when it comes to because a pitch coming at you 100 miles an hour, you're not seeing it, right?
Yeah,
You look at the release point of where or the hand of the pitcher where he's releasing it,
yeah,
when he's releasing it, and then you just time a swing, and then if you connect, if you middle a ball at 100 miles an hour, it's going over the fence. Like if you hit it
sure.
properly, right? So that's pretty impressive. Definitely give them that credit. But um, my debate was definitely between either being a scratch golfer or running a marathon. I would love to run a marathon. Would I love to run
Yeah,
an ultra marathon where it's over 100 kilometers?
yeah,
Probably not, but it would be really
yeah.
impressive to do.
Sure would.
But golfing is the perfect pastime, right?
Yeah, it is.
So
It's so
like
good.
I like if I can golf and be par throughout the course, then
Oh,
I'm laughing. I have
yeah.
nothing to complain about.
People would live to be scratch golfers. Plus, if somebody hit you up to go to, like, Pebble Beach or Augusta somehow in your life, and you'd be able to hit par, that'd be incredible. But also,
Yeah.
I think part of me is like, when would I ever be able to use the home run off a major league pitcher? Like, when do I see myself ever facing a major league pitcher? If that's the talent I want to pick off these things, I don't see that happening.
Well,
But
it's like Justin Bieber saying he could score on Jordan Bennington, right?
right,
And
yeah,
this is obviously
it's true.
before the pandemic started, but
Mhm.
could he score off of 10 shots from Bennington? I'd say he can probably get 2 out of 10,
Yeah, maybe,
probably.
maybe.
But it's the same thing. Like you never know when it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I think an ultra marathon would be incredible just simply because it's so long, and like the amount of like pain you would suffer and everything else would be something. But to say you did it, I feel like it's much easier to train for an ultra marathon and do it one time and suffer that one day and that one time than it is to train to be a scratch golfer, which is almost impossible.
Yeah, no,
So
that's
doing
that's
that
that's, that's true.
would be something. So I think definitely scratch golf, but there's a few decent answers there.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so let's move on to our next question. And it's like another top three kind of thing. So let's name
Right.
your top three greatest sporting moments that you have witnessed on television or in person. What would your
Oh
top three be?
God,
So like you
that's
could
a
have
really
watched it
good
on
question.
TV ever since you've been watching sports, or you could have witnessed it live in person.
So for me, the best sporting event I've ever witnessed in person, mostly because I'm a tennis fan, is the 2008 Wimbledon final between Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal. Which I think, if you watch tennis, which maybe not a lot of people our age do, but if you watch tennis religiously, that's probably the best tennis match ever played. And I
Hmm.
remember like sitting at the time, I'm probably 11 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this is the most insane thing I've ever watched. I don't know how these guys are getting to these balls. And it was mind blowing. And I think it actually changed the sport of tennis to what we see today, that match. So I would say that's probably the first one on my list.
Personally, we've never seen any great moments live. So
Yeah,
I get
unfortunately.
unfortunately. So I get a lot of shit from all my friends. Every time I'm at a Leafs game and it's a big game, it's like, why are you there? You're bad luck. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
legitimately.
We like
I
there's a
don't think it's
few.
us. I think it's
See,
I
I
think
think
it's the
yeah,
franchise.
exactly. You got it. So
Uh,
honestly, like all three of my sporting moments definitely would have to be on TV that I've watched, and
sure.
definitely the first one for sure, going in chronological order here. My first greatest moment I've ever seen was definitely Crosby's golden goal in 2010 Olympics.
Yeah, that's on my
Watching that
list, I think.
live, watching that live, for me, I think that was my first year ever watching hockey,
Yeah.
and seeing that and the way the celebration happened around the whole country and everything, that's what made me fall in love with the sport. And then
Yeah,
Phil Kessel,
that's
obviously, after with
incredible.
Toronto. Gotta throw him in there. But
Yeah,
what's your first moment?
that's a really good one. I I think Crosby's golden goal almost has to be on my list, but I also think that for me, I remember where I was. I was in the hotel lobby of a Hilton Garden Inn watching
Yeah.
it. And it was just not the place you want to be or you dream about being watching the golden goal. But again, an incredible sporting moment. But I think for me, the second moment I would put it would be watching Tiger Woods come back and win the green jacket at Augusta in 2019. Just watching that, I've never felt the way about an event where I'm like, there is nothing else I can be doing right now in my entire life than my eyes have to be glued to this television to see if he can do it. There is no sport, I would argue, where if Tiger's in contention on a Sunday at Augusta, almost everybody in the world feels the need to tune in because there's this tension in the air. Like I've never seen guys collapse like that. Like the leader Francisco Molinari just absolutely collapsed, and Tiger does what Tiger does, and he came back. And getting to see him win a major when I was older instead of when I was a kid, I just had this vast new appreciation, and I think it's one of the best sporting moments I've ever witnessed.
What was that tennis match that we watched at your house that one time, and your mom was there as well? I think it was Federer and
Oh, it was Djokovic
Yeah.
Federer Wimbledon. Yeah.
Wimbledon,
I
right?
remember.
Right, and then the same day was the Cricket World Cup final
I
between
remember
between
that too.
between New
Oh
Zealand
my
and England, and
God.
they went to like their overtime. So that was pretty funny as
Yeah,
well.
they did.
That was
Cool.
pretty cool to see. But for my second moment, it would have to be the Patriots comeback. It went from down 23 in Super Bowl 51, beating Atlanta. That was
that comeback.
I remember exactly where I was. I was watching it by myself. I was in my basement apartment in Hamilton while I was at McMaster. And then we had a bet going. Obviously, you know the outcome of that. Well, we won't say what it was, but
Absolutely
it is what it is. But watching that live, just it was just surreal. Like I just had no words at the time. Just I was just watching greatness. But yeah, that was pretty cool to see.
So for the viewers listening, that game, I happened to be in England at the time, and the game was taking place at around 2 a.m. In English time. And so I was watching the game on my laptop, tuning in and out from sleep. And Huz messages me, and the Falcons are up. I believe it was 28-3 at halftime. Correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but I said, well, I don't need to watch anymore, and I will bet you a burrito. If the Falcons win, I would like a free burrito, because Huz was so confident.
It was two burritos to be exact.
Two burritos.
Yeah.
And Huz was so confident that the Patriots were going to come back, and I'm like, you can't possibly be this confident. So I bet Huz like a no-brainer, because as you do when a team has a 99% chance of victory, a dinner at the most expensive restaurant in Toronto. And lo and behold, Tom Brady comes back and absolutely wipes my bank account off the face of the earth.
That's his thing.
So just ridiculous. But
one more thing for the viewers and listeners is that don't bet mean sports. Don't do it. Willie has gone through it. If you're listening, Willie, he's probably smiling right now. But I've won many bets with him, unfortunately for him.
It's an interesting one.
And Jake as well. Just don't do it. My takes are actually elite. I'm like, everything I've said on this podcast has been correct so far. I literally predicted the fight to go to distance yesterday, which it did. His brother's convinced that Logan won, but we don't see it that way.
Shit.
But I have elite takes. I'm sorry, it is what it is, but just listen to me next time. That's my third moment before you say yours. Definitely has to be Kawhi's shot in game 7, I believe it was semifinals against Philly.
Yep.
That was just something else again. I was downstairs in my living room with my whole family watching it. And then you can see when he does release the ball, it hits the rim, and they're like, "Oh no, we're going into overtime," and then it bounces 2 more times, and it bounces. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's like, mic drop, game over, perfect." And the whole city celebrating, and then they go on to the finals and win in 6 games. So that was pretty cool as well.
That's incredible. Yeah, that shot for me, again, I was in Britain watching that one, but it was one of the most insane
things
I've ever witnessed.
You were here for that?
No, I was in the UK. I was at my uncle's in Wales. I had flown over and I watched
for Kawhi's shot.
Yeah,
that was the playoffs. No, we were in your apartment downtown for the finals.
For the finals, and the second round I was in Wales. I remember exactly. I remember exactly where I was.
I don't remember that. Okay, fair enough.
In his it was in his apartment, and in his house, and I watched that at like 2 a.m. or whatever, and I absolutely blew my mind, and I woke up my aunt and my uncle just because I was going absolutely insane. But But that one was really cool. For me, it was between that one and the Batista home run. But I think because the Kawhi shot led to a championship, I have to put that as the
Yeah.
winner for me. So
Honestly,
that
now
would
that
probably
I
be.
didn't even think about the Jose homer.
I just got such chills
Just,
from that home run.
yeah,
It was just
like
the way it set it up. It was.
every time I like the whole. If you watch, I think there's a video on YouTube where it's just the whole seventh inning or the bottom
Yeah,
of it.
yeah,
Actually, no, it's the whole thing. I think
yeah. It is.
all the errors from the first baseman to the second baseman leading up to that, it was just it's like a script basically. It felt like a script,
It's like baseball to me isn't exciting, but that's probably one of the most exciting sporting moments I've ever seen. It was
Yeah,
just so
I agree.
incredible.
I agree. And
Yeah,
like just that whole
something about
series
it.
as well, it was just different. It was just different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, those are some really good picks. So the next thing I want to talk about is we have a very interesting question that you posed to me earlier, which I'd like to share. Which is if you have one game, winner take all in hockey, who is your draft pick for that game? Who are you taking to win? Whether it be a goalie, whether it be a forward, whether it be anyone in hockey, who are you taking to win a game?
I'm taking Iguodala. No, I'm just kidding. I'm taking my guy. If it's is it like a whole series or it's just one game itself?
I think it's one
it's
game.
just one game. Okay,
yeah,
so
you only get to pick your captain. That's it.
my
That's
captain,
the only player you get.
No, like I don't even have to think twice about it. It's Nathan MacKinnon.
Interesting. Okay, I think it depends. So I think there's a couple variables to this. I don't think that's necessarily a bad choice. However, I do.
It's the best choice.
It's not. But however, I think that there's questions. So I want to know if we're if it's like if this question is posed, are we drafting the entire teams?
No, it's just one pick. Like who's your one guy?
Right, but then who would they be playing with? Right? It's like because if I'm taking Connor McDavid, which is the obvious clear choice, I'm not taking the Edmonton Oilers, right? I'm taking Connor McDavid. So for me, I'm taking obviously the best player in the NHL, which is Connor McDavid. Now, granted, I'm not taking Edmonton because I think if it's Edmonton versus Nathan MacKinnon in Colorado, Edmonton gets smoked every time. But if I'm taking Team Canada, for example, and Connor's my captain, Connor's going to win every time because he's the best player in hockey. So but it's just a question of
the whole thing is that you don't know who the players around that one player are, right? And these playoffs alone prove that MacKinnon obviously is a better player in terms of when it comes to pressure, not like winning games. What I'm talking
disagree completely. I think that MacKinnon has the best line in hockey, and Rantanen, Landeskog.
No, that's not the best line in hockey. The best line in hockey right now is Bergeron, Marchand, and Pastrnak.
I think that's a whole nother debate.
That's the best line in hockey.
I have never seen a line dominate more than MacKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog. It's like nobody even challenges them.
But the thing is, you have the best two players in the league this year on the same line with McDavid and Draisaitl. Was like they had 4 points combined or 8 points combined in the 4 game series?
This is the thing, right? Is that you can have the best line in MacKinnon and Draisaitl, and if you look at the underlying stats, they are plus over 100 goals. For the regular season, right? That one line versus the rest of the division. They're plus 100 goals. When they're not on the ice, they're like negative 100 goals.
But if it's winner take all, like I'm not taking that line.
No, I'm not either. I'm taking Connor McDavid, the best player in hockey. I'm taking the guy who scored almost 2 points a game this season. I'm taking that guy. So
I just think that Nathan MacKinnon over the years has proven to play a lot better when under pressure. At least better than McDavid or even Matthews. You can put in that conversation now. So if it comes down to one game where all the pressure is on you from everyone, every corner, and you need to win that game, I'm taking MacKinnon.
I would love to see a thing where this happens, where World Cup of Hockey comes back and they get to play either for or against. But the thing is with this is it's kind of a controversial issue because you don't know who's on their team. You're just kind of picking from like a leadership basis. I just think you can't bet against the greatest player.
If we're talking about leadership basis, MacKinnon's a better leader than McDavid.
I don't know about that at all. Like I think you can't even judge leadership based on wins because like you can judge them based on the dressing room, and we're not in the dressing room, so we can't judge that. But like Colorado's one of the best teams I would say that I've ever watched in my lifetime. Like they have the GM Joe Sakic has done such a good job assembling like depth of scoring, which even the Leafs lack. Like they have such a great top end with Landeskog, Rantanen, and MacKinnon, but they do not have or rather, they have so much depth after that that like no other team. I think Tampa is a comparable, but they have so much depth that it's just like you can't go ahead and compare a Colorado that's so good in the playoffs versus an Edmonton that's not. However, you can compare the greatest player in the NHL and the greatest player I've ever seen
Yeah.
versus another guy. And
No,
I think
I'm
if you
not. I'm not.
surround McDavid,
I'm not disagreeing with you in terms of McDavid's greatness. I know he's the best player in the league right now, and he
right?
will be for the next decade at least, minimum.
Sure.
But when it comes to winning hockey games and not just scoring
Yeah.
points, I'm still taking McKinnon.
Okay, but if you swap then, for example, McDavid and McKinnon, right?
Yeah.
Colorado's a better team. They are. They're a better team because McDavid's better than McKinnon. And
Well,
if you have the exact same roster, you're gonna succeed just as much because McDavid is, without even a doubt, better than McKinnon.
yeah, McDavid is better than McKinnon. But if I'm taking one player, not knowing, let's just say that I'm taking one player and there's just scrubs. Everyone, like
Right.
every other player on the team is just all scrubs. I'm
Yeah.
still taking McKinnon.
Interesting. I
And then
could not
it comes
disagree more.
it comes back to the debate we had earlier with Crosby and McDavid, is that I think McKinnon is very similar to Crosby, where he makes players around him a lot better, whereas in
So does
McDavid is
McDavid.
not. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
Oh, McDavid is the greatest passer I've ever seen.
Yeah, but that doesn't make players around him great. That just feeds into their stats. That's not making that player better. What I mean by that, so if you look at the stat that you were just comparing them like literally 5 minutes ago, with them being on the ice and they're plus 155, whereas in them being off the ice they're minus 100. That's not other players around him being better. Whereas if you look at
that's
McKinnon,
that's not McDavid though. That stat has nothing to do with McKinnon
that's
or
what
McDavid.
yes, it does. That's the whole point of my whole
No,
argument.
when he's on the ice, he's plus 100 whatever. When he's
Yeah, I know
off
that.
the ice,
Yeah.
so right, so it has nothing to do with him.
Yes,
Like,
it does.
not
That's
feeding.
the point. But the point I'm trying to make is that McKinnon and Crosby, as players in the dressing room and on the ice and on the bench, they make players around them a lot better than they are. Whereas in McDavid does
know.
not.
That's like an impossible thing. I think that's like a very.
It's not impossible because that stat literally proves that.
Yeah,
Like,
but no, it
if
doesn't.
you look
because
at
the whole.
okay, so the point you're trying to make is that when McDavid's on the ice, he's plus 155 or whatever the crazy number is, which is ridiculous to even think about. And when he's off the ice, his team's like a minus hellhole, right?
Right, but
whereas if you look at the same
stat,
if you look at the same stat for McKinnon and Crosby, that number's a lot more even. It's not lopsided.
Yeah, but this is the thing that has nothing to do with them as a player. It has nothing to do with them. McDavid is plus 100 goals because when he's on the ice, everybody around him is absolutely insane because he takes over the game and he feeds them the puck and then he gets the puck back and they score, right? That's why he's so good. And when he's off the ice, when he is not involved in the game, right? When he has nothing to do with the game, they suck because the Edmonton Oilers can't assemble a team.
So I think that when McDavid's on the ice, every team tries to double team him at most. That will always leave the guy open. But it doesn't work because that's just how good McDavid is. Right? But that's not making others around. I don't think you're understanding the point I'm trying to make.
Of course I am. I get it. I just disagree. I think McDavid is by far the best player and the best player to play with in the NHL. I think
this is why I don't think you understand what I'm trying to say, because I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that McDavid is by far the best player. What I'm disagreeing with is it's like I just don't think he makes others great around him. That's all I'm trying to say.
I know, and I get that. I get what you're trying to say. I disagree. I'm interested to see
what
other people.
If you look at Crosby's history of players that he's played with, like Brian Rust, Jake Gensel, Chris Kunitz is the biggest name that you can think of. Who has McDavid made great around him? Can you name at least three?
This is the exact problem, right? Is that it's nothing to do.
Well, you'll say that he has no one.
I got him. No, I'm not. That's not true. So let me make my point. So with Crosby, they've had fantastic management. Crosby was drafted into a perfect situation with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was drafted into a situation with Marc-Andre Fleury, Evgeny Malkin, Jordan Staal is another one. Chris Kunitz is another one. He came in. He played with Mario Lemieux for a few seasons. He came in and was surrounded in a perfect spot. Connor McDavid has come in and has been surrounded by absolute dummies his entire career. He has had arguably one player.
He had Taylor Hall. He had Jordan Eberle, right? He had all these first overall picks that he had to play with, but nothing came out of it.
He got to play with Taylor Hall for a year when he was a rookie before Taylor Hall was dealt for Adam Larson, which is one of the worst trades of all time.
But Taylor Hall won the Hart the next year.
Yeah, for New Jersey when he was the main guy.
Yeah,
and I don't even think it was the year after.
No, it wasn't. It was literally the next year. It was literally the next year.
Right, and but this is you're trying to say that a 19-year-old Connor McDavid couldn't make a guy better. When Crosby came into the first year, he had 105 points on a stud team, right?
Yeah.
It's a completely different situation when you're talking career-wise. When you're talking
Oh
about
yeah,
Connor
it's a
McDavid's
10-year
career,
difference.
he has never been given any talent to make better. Like if you're playing
Okay, so
if you're playing a
if you're gonna say like, so notice how I didn't say like Lemieux's name or all the other players that you just said,
sure.
because I know they're all really great by themselves. But Chris Kunitz, Brian Rust, Jake Gensel, they're
Chris
not great
Kunitz made the
players.
Olympic team.
Yeah,
He was a
because of
40.
Crosby. Because of
Yeah, but
Crosby. Like
sure, but
there's
like what you're talking about is a guy who is you're talking about a 60-point player
yes,
pre-Crosby, and Crosby makes him a 90-point player, right?
yes, exactly. Well, that's making him
McDavid doesn't,
better.
yeah, right. McDavid doesn't have a 60-point player to play with to make better,
But
right? He has
if he,
none of them. They've
but
never
he,
existed.
but he can't make a 20-point player across 50 points. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like I
Yeah,
don't
but
care
that's
if you
because he's
have
never
a
been
zero
given the
point player.
opportunity.
You
Like
have
he's
all the opportunity in the world. Like if you have a guy on your team that's scoring 10 points a game, if you can get him to score 50 points, that's the same comparable.
No, it's not, because when you start with a 60-point guy, a guy who, if you put on another team and is a good role player, right? It is very
Yeah.
easy to take a above average talent and make them elite than it is to take a guy who can't stick handle and make them a average player.
So
It
see
is so much harder.
that's where I'm disagreeing with you, because that's what McKinnon and Crosby do.
Yeah, but
I think that's
I couldn't name you one player that Crosby has had that has been a below average player, a below average line mate, that he has made an average player. I can't name you one. McDavid stuck with guys like Josh Archibald, who I've slandered for now the second time on this
the
podcast. Sorry,
reason you
Josh,
can't
but you're
name
not good.
the reason why you can't name one is because McDavid hasn't made anyone as good as that, whereas
Because he
Crosby does
doesn't
that.
have any talent to play with. And again, we could debate this all day. I'd
It's
love to see
all
what other people
it's
think.
all. I mean, he has talent. Like they made the NHL for a reason, right? They're all talented players. It's just that it can make David get them to take, get on to the next gear of their
I
play.
personally
Where
think this is an absolutely ludicrous opinion, but again,
sure,
it's like you can't
to
be
each
the
their
best
own, I
player in
guess.
you can't be the best player in the NHL if you're not making your line mates better. I think that's just absolutely insane. But I would like to see people's take on if there were scrubs on both teams and you only had a McKinnon or a McDavid, who would win. I want to know what people think about that.
Fair
But
enough.
moving on, who is your biggest bust in sports history?
My biggest bust in sports history, I have two. One for hockey, one for basketball. I'll start off with my basketball. Biggest bust, or at least in my time, because obviously I haven't been watching basketball for way too long. But Anthony Bennett is the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, it's
Unfortunately,
a really, really
Canadian
good one,
kid,
actually.
right? First overall pick in 2013, I believe it was, for the
Yeah,
Cavaliers, and then didn't do shit afterwards,
yeah, that's a
right?
really,
Like
really, really good one.
he literally fell, just literally did nothing. Like he's played
Yeah,
on many other teams, Toronto being one of them as well, but just didn't really pan out to the player he was expected to be, and it was just all
yeah.
hype. It was great. It was great to see a Canadian get picked first overall, but a Canadian get first pick overall, picked first overall. Oh my god, I can't talk today. And then to be a bust is it sucks,
Yeah,
but
it does.
it is what it is. But we do have a lot more talent coming up from Canada as well, going into the NBA, in the next coming years as well. So we'll see how that works out.
That's a really good one because it's like part of our generation, and I think like that plays a lot into it. For my first one, it's like kind of hockey folklore. Like Brian Lawton for me is like a running joke because there's a lot that goes into it. He was drafted first overall in 1983 to the Minnesota North Stars, and essentially how the story goes is he chose the number 98 because it was kind of a stab at Wayne Gretzky. Nobody had ever worn the number before, but he knew he was going to be, or he thought he was going to be the next Wayne, so he wanted to be the 98 to Wayne Gretzky's 99, which is an absolute joke. And he holds the number up at his press conference, being the first NHL player to wear it. And his biggest highlight from his career was Mario Lemieux putting the puck through his legs. He falls, and Mario Lemieux goes shelf for one of the best goals of all time. And the guys that could have, the Minnesota North Stars as an expansion franchise, could have had are guys like Steve Yzerman, Cam Neely, Pat LaFontaine, like Hall of Fame guys. And Brian Lawton was a complete bust. So he is
That's
by
hilarious.
far one of the best guys, or biggest draft busts.
Not bad. I think for my second pick, the second I do have, I'm still sticking to our era of sports. Just because
Sure.
like I don't like, in terms of sports history, I just really tend to not focus on it because it's the past. I'm not a Habs fan.
Sure.
I tend to focus more on the future. But it would have to be Nail Yakupov. in
Yeah, of
recent
course.
history. He's expected to be one of the best players of that, or well, obviously the best player of that draft pool because he went first overall, but he's expected a lot more out of what he delivered with. Edmonton at that time was actually a great team, to be honest with you. But
A
just
lot of hype.
management, a lot of hype. I would say that's the word I'm really looking for. It was a lot of hype around that team, and the fact that this guy was on here. I think he scored in his first game. That
Yep.
crazy celebration he did, where he slid all the way to center ice. Don
Yeah.
Cherry calls him a fool afterwards. It was a great time to be of being an Edmonton Oilers fan, but
Yeah.
Yakupov just fell off and never really picked back up after that again. So
Yeah,
that's
couldn't
that's
agree more.
my
That's a really, really, really good one. For me, I think knowing if we're talking all sports, veering away from hockey,
yeah.
the biggest sports bust in the history of sports, one could argue, would be the bust of Ryan Leaf, who Ryan Leaf was a quarterback selected second overall by the San Diego Chargers in 1998. And the guy who went first overall was Peyton Manning. And so he was, the Colts are going back and forth about who to pick, who's going to get taken. And coming out of high school, both of them were very similar. They're both incredible. They're being compared as, Ryan might be better than Peyton. Peyton might be better than Ryan. Anyways, Peyton goes on to be the greatest quarterback, arguably one of the top three quarterbacks to ever play the game. And Ryan Leaf goes on to play maybe a season, who was absolutely terrible
Yeah.
his entire time. So he, for me, is one of the biggest jokes ever in terms of sports busts.
Yeah, well, that's actually not a bad list that you have there as well. But let's move on to our next question that we do have, or I guess not a question, but more of a recap of last night, the Logan
Yeah.
Paul Floyd Mayweather fight.
Yeah.
I think it was a great event. To be honest with you, it was entertaining.
Really?
That's my take on it. I know a lot of people are hating on it. If you're hating on it, I know for sure you didn't pay for the fight, so you have no right to hate on it. Just like myself, I streamed it. Sorry.
Yeah, me too.
To whoever showcase or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But like it's for entertainment purposes. Coming into it, you knew that there was not going to be an official winner. That's why I guess people want to see a knockout. But Floyd Mayweather is a businessman, right? Business for him comes first. So if he can literally run around the ring, hug the guy for a round or two, it was at the end, and make 100 mil, whatever he made, some crazy, a lot of crazy money, right?
The man sold a mask sponsorship. He sold a sponsorship.
He's a businessman, He's a business. I honestly like that's the he's making money. Like why? What? Like why? How can you hate that? Like for him, like it's like it's so crazy to see how smart this guy is taking this fight, knowing that he's just gonna run around the ring. And then for even for Logan Paul, like credit to him, like the fact that he actually called him out to begin with, got this fight in the works, and then had all these agreements to it, and then for it to end the way it did in a draw or whatever. I guess there's no official result, but it went to distance and whatnot. I think it was fantastic for throughout, like all the other fights. I don't know if you watched the whole card, but they were pretty great as well.
I kind of agree with you. For me, I have a few takes. So the first thing is, I think going into this, Logan almost couldn't lose. Like whatever happens, the guy's a YouTuber. I'm not a Logan Paul fan by any means, but I think you have to give the guy credit because he turned a YouTube career and a video making career to getting in the ring with the greatest boxer of all time and making, $20 million in the process in 30 minutes. Like it's almost unbelievable that happened. And on top of that, I think people that are ripping the event, it's like, of course, everybody wants to tune in to see the YouTuber get knocked out. And with Jake, chirping and having all these fights with other UFC guys, I think people tuned in to finally see them get shut up. But the beauty of it is that Logan was like 30 pounds heavier. He only had to survive 8 rounds instead of 12. And on top of that, it's like he knew that Floyd's not a knockout artist. Floyd is a fantastic boxer who, if you think Logan won the fight, you're lost and you clearly don't watch boxing. But for me, it's like he knew that there's a very good chance he wouldn't get knocked out because not only is he 40 pounds bigger than Floyd, but he's also fighting a guy who couldn't knock out 140 pounders, So for him to knock out a 190 pounder is likely not going to happen. It was all about if Logan could just survive. And he did, and credit to him, because now he can walk around his YouTube channel and say, hey, I just survived 8 rounds against the greatest fighter of all time, and I didn't lose. I'm now the only guy not to lose because there's no recording of who won or lost, which is incredible. So credit to them. It was an interesting event. I mean, you had to tune in. It was like one of those things where you almost had to if you love sports.
Yeah, no, I definitely do agree with that point as well. I was like, I was working all day yesterday, and I got home and I'm like beat. I'm just like, do I sleep? Do I watch the event? And I was like, you know what? It's just whatever. I'm not paying for it.
Yeah,
I'll just stream it.
hundred hundred
It was.
percent.
I found it really entertaining. It was funny at some points as well.
Yeah,
But it is what it is. Like it's what we, or at least what I expected. So if you're
100%. I
just,
agree.
if you're like going out of your way to hate it, then you're just a troll. Like, just stop it, bro.
Agreed.
Like, there's
Yeah.
no need for that, and just move on and focus on
Shout
next
out
week's
to
UFC. Yeah, go ahead.
Shout out to Migos, who they put the camera on and his mic's cut out the entire time, which was just my favorite part of the entire event.
Oh
Just
yeah.
going and rapping into dead mics, which was just
Hmm.
incredible. But the last thing I wanted to talk about here after this Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather recap was the situation going on with the Leafs. I know we talk a lot about the Leafs on this podcast, but it's mostly because of heartbreak, and we have to vent, and this is how we do it. So right now, a report came out from Chris Johnson about Zach Hyman and how the Leafs are not likely going to be able to retain Hyman, or it is going to be extremely difficult to do so. The report was that he didn't sign for $5 million. They offered him $5 million, which I've done a little bit of reading on the Leafs salary cap, and unfortunately, that is almost the limit we're going to be able to offer Zach. So he turned that down apparently, and it wasn't close. And other teams are likely going to offer him in the range of 6.5, which we wouldn't be able to match. So it's not even that gets me. It's that this guy, Zach Hyman, is everything the Leafs don't have. He is gritty. He goes into the corners. He spits out the puck for talented players like Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. He contributes 20 goals. He is the hardest worker by far on the Leafs. And losing a guy like that when you don't have anybody else like him is just an absolute gut punch as a Leafs fan. And it's going to
Yeah,
be so tough if it happens.
I totally agree with that. It's just it would suck to see him go, of course, like obviously.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it's it's a business sport as well, right? So like he's got to think about his family, his future,
for
and
sure.
if he wants to get paid, he deserves to get paid. That's the type of player he is.
Yep.
So for the Leafs standpoint, like if they can, if the players like that's not a management thing. That's not a coach thing. It's a players thing, right? So
Yeah.
the players around Hyman, like a Pierre Engvall or Ilya Mikheyev, or I don't even know if we have Ilya Mikheyev for next year if he's going to come back. But just players of that caliber on the third and fourth line, if they can like elevate their game to the way Hyman played, like Galchenyuk as well, then we have no problem with it, right? If each line has at least one,
Yeah.
or if two of the four lines, we have two guys that are like Hyman, then we have no problem moving forward with it. But if we lose, I mean, losing Hyman
Yeah.
obviously would suck because he's Hyman, right?
I
Um,
also think the Leafs have zero secondary scoring. Like if you look at teams across the league,
yeah,
we have a roster where we have the Marner, Matthews, Hyman line, Tavares, Nylander, Galchenyuk line, or whoever subs in on that second line. And after that, we
yeah,
really don't have like immense secondary scoring. Like we don't have guys that'll come in and give you the extra boost when your best players aren't playing well. We kind of ride or die on our top two lines. So to lose a guy
yeah.
that's so valuable in a Zach Hyman, he's
I mean,
so
so with that point, like I kind of do disagree because Hyman is
okay.
in the top six, so he is like your part of your primary scoring.
That's what I
Second,
mean.
second,
Yeah,
secondary scoring wise, like we expected a lot more out of Kerfoot, and I think he did play a
for
lot better
sure.
in the playoffs this year. Obviously, the outcome none of us were expecting. I mean, I called it, but we didn't want. Um, little self tap right there. But we expected a lot out of Kerfoot during the regular season. But like I said, if Kerfoot can, changes the way he plays his game, at least close enough to how Hyman played, he'll be a lot better. But he'll be a better player next year. Same thing goes with his
Yeah,
line mates as well. And then I don't know. I think Nick Robertson's up next year. And a couple other young guys as well, because we're losing a few forwards on our bottom six at least.
yeah,
So if they can, develop themselves close enough to being like Hyman or like a Tom Wilson or a Brad Marchand, you know,
sure.
like where the Leafs are in good company.
Right, but I mean that's the thing, right? Is you dream that your prospects are going to end up like a Brad Marchand, a Zach Hyman. Like if you lose a guy like that, a guy who plays like you can clearly tell Zach Hyman he's physical. He does everything you want a hockey player to do and more, right? He's that guy who wears his heart on the sleeve. He goes into the boards. He will take a puck to the nuts if it means winning a game. Like he is that guy. And I think
Yeah.
that if you lose a guy like that, it is very difficult as a Leafs fan to be like, oh, we're going to be better than we were last year, which is
See,
so upsetting.
honestly, I personally did not just see this. I honestly did not see this happening at all. Like coming
I
to this
didn't
point
either.
where we're trying our best to sign Hyman and he might sign elsewhere. Only reason
Yeah, I
why
didn't.
because he has so many sponsorships in Toronto.
I know.
He writes books in Toronto. I mean, you can write books anywhere really and release
He's a
them. But
Toronto
you
boy.
know,
He's
he's from
incredible.
Toronto, and then he has an e-gaming team as well, like an
Yeah.
esports team, right? So like he has so many things going on in Toronto where I feel like money shouldn't be the biggest thing. Like
Right.
if you look at
Exactly.
what McKinnon if you look at what McKinnon said the other day, he's like, you know, for my next deal, I'll take another discount because I want to win this with this. I want to win with this team.
Can
Like
we get a
that's
couple of those guys? How do you get those guys? Like friggin' heck.
you know.
You don't have
So
any of them.
so so like play for playing the sport and winning with the team that you have, not for the money. But at the same time, I'm not in his shoes,
Incredible.
so
No.
I wouldn't do. I wouldn't know what I would do if I was in his shoes.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can all say, "Oh no, I'll take a discount, whatever." But at the same
Marner
time, like
didn't.
you
Matthews
never know.
didn't. Why would Hyman?
I want to say
That's the whole thing.
Matthews. Well, Matthews never really held out, right? Matthews knew what
No,
he
but
was getting,
he was
right?
never
Marner,
gonna not get paid.
the only two players that I can think of that held out were obviously Marner and Nylander.
Yep.
Nylander still is a great contract. I'll never disagree with that. Even at the time, I thought it was a great contract as well. And obviously, he was the best player in the playoffs for us this year. But the Marner thing, it sucks, but it is what it is. Like, if we can
It
get more
does.
guys to take discounts moving forwards and, play for the team aspect of it and winning, then, we're laughing in the future.
I just think with this Hyman thing is it's almost like to your point of him making a lot of money outside of hockey in Toronto. I think he's also set up on the best possible situation for his career, playing with guys like Marner and Matthews. I don't think he'll find himself in a better situation league wide. But on top of that, too, is the last question.
There are better players to play around in the league with, right? Like it's not just Marner and Matthews running the league.
Sure, but I mean, I just
I
don't
recommend.
see.
I'm not recommend. I read into Edmonton offering him like 6.5 over 6 years. Him playing with McDavid on the line, that would be great for him and McDavid.
Oh,
Having a
I
guy
couldn't agree
that'd
more.
be the
I think like
perfect winger for McDavid.
I think if McDavid if he was to end up on a line with McDavid and Draisaitl or McDavid and somebody else, I think that's the best possible spot, or that would be like one of the only better situations for him in the entire league. But I think there's maybe like two situations that are comparable to the Matthews and Marner spot he's got right now. And I don't see a team other than perhaps maybe in Edmonton offering him a deal. But the last thing I wanted to talk about here was I think I know your take already because you're like the biggest Morgan Riley stan of all time. I had to trade rather Morgan Riley to keep Zach Hyman. What would you do? And here's my take. No. I'll give you your chance here
Oh my
because
god.
I know your take. But if Morgan Riley's on a 1-year deal, right? So as an unbiased Leafs fan, right, you are going to let Zach Hyman walk away for nothing, which to a franchise like this is crippling because we don't have draft picks and we have nothing. So if we are able to keep a Zach Hyman, right,
Yeah.
for free, for money, then that keeps our team the same and gives us a chance to improve, right? We have depth defenders. We don't have anybody like Riley. I'm not saying we do. I think it's terrible. But if you can accumulate value for a guy like Riley, because he does have a year left, if you can get a first-round pick plus a serviceable defenseman, or let's say Dubas works a miracle and gets a decently similar defenseman for a Morgan Riley type that's on a contract, then you have the ability then to improve, right? Whereas if you let Hyman walk, you can't replace Hyman because we don't have cap and we don't have picks. So you're letting Hyman walk, and then eventually you may have to let Morgan Riley walk. So is it better to trade Morgan Riley to keep Hyman, or do you keep Riley and kind of hope you can get a comparable Hyman and hope for improvement?
So here's my take.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Hyman's taking a walk. We're keeping Morgan Riley, and so I'll tell you why. I'll walk Hyman out, no problem.
Why? He's incredible.
He is. I mean, they're both incredible players. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of Morgan Riley. So we're keeping Morgan Riley. Period. No, okay,
The
okay,
bias is talking, eh?
okay. So like bias aside, though, like
Yeah, yeah.
you're not going to replace. It's just like the argument that you had with Mitch Marner on the last podcast, right? With if you trade Marner, you're not replacing Marner with another Marner, right?
I
Whereas in
think okay, I get it. I get your
right,
point.
so when you get rid of Riley, like let's say you trade him away for a first round pick and what a first round pick would be awesome to get, but we're not
Yeah.
expecting as fans to be picking in the top 20 of the draft when we do have a first round pick. We
It
want
just
to win.
depends who you trade him to.
Well, we
Yeah,
want to win, right? Like
of
that's yeah, I
course.
guess that's true as well. But at the same time, like Morgan Riley's such a great. He had such a great playoff series this
He's
year,
an iconic
right?
Leaf, is what he
Right.
is. Yeah.
He's been with the Leafs since he's been drafted. I think he was drafted in 2013. I think no
Yeah.
2012 in the Yakupov
2012.
draft.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was drafted in the Yakupov draft, and he's been with the Leafs since. He's been through the 2013 all the playoff struggles. Okay, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But he's not a guy that you would let just walk or trade. Now
No,
your
I
point.
agree.
If we do let Hyman walk, there's no way we don't re-sign Riley because we will have the money to re-sign Riley.
Yep.
Obviously with Freddie leaving as well, I'm sure he does. Then we'll have tons of money to re-sign Riley. No problem with that. So why
Mhm.
not keep the guy when he's in his prime?
Well, here's the thing, right? Is I think it's difficult to say. I just want to make a couple points. So just before we end is in terms of the thing you said about Mitch Marner and how if you can't replace guys who are like 90-point players and guys who
Yeah,
are tops in the league. So with
yeah,
Marner, I think we can both agree. Well, you might not agree that he has the potential to be a top 5 player. I think we can both
no,
agree he's. I think we can both agree he is. If he's not a top 10 player already, he will easily be one on Matthews' wing for the next 10 years. So I think
a top
with
10 player,
that,
yes, but there's a
right,
big
exactly.
difference
So
between
I know, but I'm just saying we can both agree he's top.
yeah,
He'll be a top
yeah,
10, right? So
yeah.
what I'm saying with that is that Morgan Riley is not a top 10 defenseman and never will be one.
Excuse
So
me.
I think he's not. He's just not. Like I don't
Hello.
think there's even a case to be made that Morgan Riley is a top 10 defenseman. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that while it's a similar
That's
conversation,
just
I think
hurtful.
there is something there's something
Like,
to be
no.
said. There is something to be said about re-signing Hyman for free and not losing him for nothing, which I think if you're going to lose any Leaf, he is almost one of the most important ones you don't want to lose. And getting something for a guy like Riley, even though it may be not as much as you'd like, or you might not be disproving, we have more defensive prospects that look like a future Morgan Riley than we do forward prospects that can look like a Zach Hyman, which I don't. I think that you need grit surrounded by this team, and we're going to lose a lot of it. And I would
Yeah.
much prefer to get something than to have a guy walk for free, which it
So
sucks because I love
I
Morgan Riley too.
much as I would want to agree with that, I don't. Only reason why it's because what's been our struggle for the last decade and a half? Defense and goaltending. Right now, when we finally have a good core for defense, when we have, Morgan Riley, TJ Brody, Jake Muzzin as our top 3 guys, I hope Zach Bogosian resigns with us. That'd be awesome to have him back. And then you have Rasmus Sandin and Travis Dermott, Justin Holl. That's our 7 defensemen right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep that same group that we have. They're all great in their own ways, right? There's literally no problem. Losing Riley would be crazy for that group of guys, right? He's like that leader on that core.
Right.
Now with our goaltending, Jack Campbell proved to be our starter. Obviously, he's done very well last year, so hopefully he continues that success next year. All we need to go
Yeah.
forward is replacing Hyman. All for really focus on is replacing Hyman.
Yeah. I
Hyman is replaceable. He
I don't
is.
think so.
Really, like, come on, like anyone can. You can develop. Toronto has the best development coaches in the league, and that's
I
it's been
agree.
proven. It's been proven over time.
Yeah.
So if they can develop a guy like Hyman to the player he became, they can do that with Nick Robertson. They can do that with all the other forwards coming up from the Marlies as well.
Yeah, I think that
I
if they
truly
could have
do.
done that, though, we would have made it past round 1 in the last 17 years. Like
We didn't
it's
use any of
losing
our young
guys.
guys, right? Well, the thing is, we didn't use any of our young guys.
Yeah,
We brought in vets from around the league, and Wayne Simmons and Joe Thornton, Gil Chanyuk, and and Spezza. So we relied on
right.
them, and it didn't work. So for
No, we had
next year,
no
it's a different.
secondary scoring, unfortunately. Like versus other teams,
That's
I
what I'm
think the
trying to.
lack of
Well,
secondary
that's what.
scoring.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Like
Yeah,
the approach that Toronto and I guess Montreal took this year was signing, veteran players around the league to league-min deals and see how it works out. It worked out very well for Montreal so far. They're gonna sweep the Jets probably today. I I hope my pick stays with 6 games. But if they sweep them, they sweep them. Congrats to
Yeah,
Montreal. But definitely did not work for Toronto. With Thornton, Simmons, Spezza was phenomenal. I'm not
he
gonna say
was.
anything
Yeah.
bad about him. But Toronto's got to take a different way. Like if you look at Colorado and Tampa, all their guys that they've picked up or they've had are all been from or have been from their farm teams that
I
they've
think
developed over time.
we can talk about this for a long time.
Yeah.
The one thing I've thought about recently that I think stays with me is that a report came out that Nick Foligno, when we traded for him, and we gave up
Mhm.
a first, two fourths, and
Yep.
I believe a fifth as well to get him,
Yeah.
is
I
that we
hated that trade,
traded
by the
for.
way. And
Yeah,
yeah.
I know you did. But what I found out recently, what I'm thinking a lot about is we've taken that approach where we had a lot of grit. So we had a Simmons, a Thornton. We added all these bigger vets who were Bogosian would be another that provided grit. And I think what we did was, I'm not an NHL GM, but this is just my take. Is that I think what we did was is we kind of doubled down on on that by acquiring Nick Foligno. But the report that came out was that he was hurt actually when we got him, is that he wasn't healthy when we acquired him, which I think is crazy if you're giving up already what is considered a steep price for a healthy Nick Foligno. And you're going to give up that for an injured Nick Foligno. And on top of that, it's like we doubled down on this grit when what we needed truly was secondary scoring. And I think if you
Yeah.
look at the Bostons, the Tampas, the Colorados, they go out every deadline and they get the best player available, which is what Boston did with Taylor Hall, and it's worked out phenomenally for them. And if you're a Leaf fan and you're looking back on that and you're thinking, I could have got potentially a point a game player in Taylor Hall for
Well,
less than it
no.
acquired
So
Nick
no,
Foligno.
no, 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 no. So Taylor Hall chose Boston.
I know, I
You know,
know.
he that was a completely different situation. Boston fleeced Buffalo, but
Yeah, for
Buffalo
sure.
had no option. Buffalo
Yeah,
literally had no option. Like Taylor Hall literally handcuffed Buffalo. He said that the only team I want to get traded to is Boston. Get your best offer and send me to Boston.
sure, but it doesn't have to be Taylor Hall. That was just an example. But my point is that what we needed truly was secondary scoring, and I think we didn't go out and get that. Mike Hoffman was another guy who was available potentially. Like there were different
He,
options,
he was
but
shit this year though. Like he was like you look at St. Louis, like he
right.
hasn't
But
done
he's a
shit for
far.
all
But
this year.
just like Taylor Hall was shit on Buffalo, right? Is like what we needed is goal
But
scoring, and what
but,
we
but
acquired was not goal
yeah.
scoring.
Well, yeah, Taylor Hall was awful with Buffalo, but he's killing it with Boston. But
Right.
Hoffman's still shit. Like he hasn't
Yeah, no,
changed.
I know, but I'm
Yeah,
saying is like my point only there is just that a guy can be better on it with a change of scenery.
yeah,
And
fair
so I
enough.
think that it's like goal scoring was what we needed, and we acquired a guy who was just grit and grind, which is not exactly what we needed. And I think, as it goes on, I'd love to know other people's takes. And I also, before we end here, I just want your prediction, and I think I already know it, of what happens with the Leafs and Hyman and Riley and which one of them we lose. I personally think we lose Morgan Riley and we keep Zach Hyman. And I think we trade Riley for a package of some sort. And I think that's my prediction for what's going to happen in the offseason and how
If
we're going to
if we
change it.
lose Morgan Riley, I'm becoming a Habs fan for life. You have to answer. All right.
No, you're not. No, you're not, because I think there's a good chance we do, and I'll die if you become a Habs fan. So don't do that for the love of God.
Willie, I'm coming, buddy. I'm coming.
Thanks for listening, guys. I greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. Take it easy.